Good day, everybody. And again, I want to welcome you to another study session coming live from your friend Dwight Dawkins. We're going to go into Genesis 2, continuing with the creation story. And before we get started, I want to share this clip with you, which can be found on YouTube just by Googling what you see on the end.
Relationship and your friend and your family, and obviously praising the Lord. And it says, it's working on Sundays, true freedom. It basically says, all of this hard work that people are doing on the weekends, on Sundays, is having a negative impact on their lives.
It's so easy to let just work seep in. I mean, if you're home on the weekend and you job Monday through Friday, and you just, I'm just going to get some work done. I'm going to go down to my office, do some work, I'm going to get this done. Then you don't realize then what it's taking away from that day of rest, that day of family, and that hour, that 2 hours just starts to snowball. And I think he has a great point.
Yeah, it's not.
He does. I mean, Judaism takes this very seriously. Orthodox Jews do not mess around, and I admire this so much about the Sabbath. And again and again, you see this in the Old and New Testament. Keep the Sabbath holy. Don't work. It's almost like people, it's baked in, have always had this temptation to let work crowd out all the other things that matter. Family, faith. And I have to be told again and again, knock it off. Don't work. It's interesting. I think people are lazy, but they work too much.
And it's so cool when you see businesses like Chick-fil-A on this fried chicken national holiday today, that they are not open on Sundays, and a lot of people give them business on the other 6 days of the week because they believe in that policy as well. But when you're driving around and you're on the road trip on a Sunday, and you see the lights are dark, yeah, they're closed on Sunday. Yeah, they're still closed on Sunday.
One of the few holidays.
Because it's appointed.
Well, we're talking about this during the holidays, too. I mean, all.
Again, welcome as we continue with our studies. Now, the question was asked on our last study session. What one thing we all have in common as long as we're alive? What is it that as long as we're alive, we all share? Many people would answer oxygen. Some people would say love. They move out of something that is tangible to something that may be emotional. But as you truly consider it, you realize that not everybody has the same access to everything, including oxygen, which is almost ubiquitous. And we know that without it, there is no life. So then we understand that that's not the actual answer. But the one thing we all have in common is time. I remember some years back, it was, I think, a Friday. I had a patient that came into the office just for his regular checkup. And everything seemed fine. He was laughing, smiling. The guy was in his 50s, may have smoked, cholesterol was a little high, but nothing major, typical person. And I remember after the weekend coming back on the Monday, and when I looked at my census, the patient was there, he was in ICU, went, checked his records to see what had happened, and apparently sometime over the weekend, he threw a clot that blocked the blood vessels to his intestines. And so his intestines essentially died. He got ischemic. It was almost like a heart attack, but to the intestines. Came to the hospital, the surgeon opened it up. When they looked, they realized that the entire bowels were dead. Nothing else to do, they closed him up. When I got there, he was still on pain medication. When I researched and find out, what are the options, there was no option. As long as we maintained him on some pain medication, he was technically alive. Once the medication was turned off, he would die. And that day, coordinating with the family and everything, with the understanding that his time had essentially come to an end. You start to realize that the thing that we all share in common as long as we're alive is that time. So as we open our Bible to Genesis 2, we discuss the first 6 days of creation. Genesis 2 chapter 1 verse 1 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them." God had finished his creation. Everything that he was to make, he made. Verse 2 says, "And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made." Verse 4 says, "These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth, when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens." So last time we spoke about the crowning act of creation, which was man being made in God's image. We were the crowning act, but the signature wasn't finished yet, or the painting wasn't completed yet. The signature was not placed upon the crowning act. And so you find that after God created in 6 days and realized that the days, the Bible says that he called things into existence. Man, is said he made man. He made man in his own image. But everything else it says he called into existence. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. But then on the following day, he said that he did something special. He did something specific. Said that he rested on the seventh day from all his work. And he blessed it and he sanctified it, because that in it he had rested. So rather than starting the week over, he created an entire day for rest. He created an entire day and he set it apart. When I say set it apart, he said that he blessed it and he sanctified it. Sanctification, sanctified meaning he set it apart. He made it holy. It became his signature. And what do I mean by that? When you do an artwork and you've finished everything, I have a patient, he since this died now, but he painted a picture for me that I still have hanging in my office. Beautiful picture of a panther, beautiful picture. And when I looked at the picture, I was able to say, you missed something. You can imagine he put his love into the picture. He loved his doctor. I mean, who wouldn't love their doctor? But he forgot to put his signature on the artwork. As a matter of fact, many of the famous artists and artwork that people buy, the Van Gogh and all these different artwork, one of the things that sells it is the signature. When you see that signature, you realize the value. So when God created everything, the final thing he did was he created the seventh day. Every day he did something, and on the seventh day he said he rested it and he just blessed the day. He sanctified it. He made it holy. And the reason he made it holy, he said, well, because I'm resting. You almost can see him sitting back on that day and taking a look at his creation, observing the things that he had made and saying, oh man, this is very good. He blessed it and he sanctified it. Now, why is that important? Because the thing that we all have in common is time, as long as we're alive. And so that nobody has an excuse regarding their ability to observe time. The 7-day weekly cycle also is evidence of who God is. It is evidence of the creation. I questioned myself. I said, let me see if the 7th day or the 7-day weekly cycle is not from creation, then where did it come from? Now, I Googled it. You know, everybody uses Google and they go on there and that's where they get their information from. The problem with Googling is that you can get a lot of different information. You almost have to know whether or not you're going to accept it by faith or you're going to throw it out. You're going to also need to know where the source comes from. And so when I Googled it, the thing that I got was, it says that the 7th day originated in the 6th century BC. It gives credit to the Babylonians, who it says were the dominant culture in the Near East. It said that the Jews who were captives in the Babylonian time, they adopted the week concept. Now, when you go in the Bible, you realize that the Jews had been around and observing their 7-day weekly cycle long before the Babylonians, long before they entered into captivity into Babylon. As a matter of fact, you can remember the whole journey through the Exodus. As they were going through the Exodus, even before the 10 Commandments was given to Moses, they would get manna from heaven, if you remember the story. And as they were getting manna, they were told that, listen, you would be able to pick up manna on 6 days. But on one day, it seemed like even heaven was resting. Don't expect any manna. So, the observance of the 7-day weekly cycle occurred long before what the Google and the dictionary now is trying to give you as fact. When we read the Bible, it says that even before the Jews, the 7-day weekly cycle was given. It was given to Adam and Eve. After God created everything on the 6th day, He gave the Sabbath. We don't even know right now why we observe the Sabbath if we take away the creation story. We don't know why we observe the 7-day weekly cycle if we take away the creation story. So that signature is actually what brings us back to the fact that God is the creator. That signature is what lets us realize that even before that theory of evolution came, we had the weekly cycle. Now what you're seeing with the clip that I showed at the beginning was that there's almost a call to going back to observing a weekly cycle. Now God said that He created the week, and the last day of the week, He blessed it. Now, interestingly, even on the clip, credence was given to the fact that the Jews still observe their weekly cycle, which was a continuation from creation. And so there was a call in the clip to go back to observing a day of the week not necessarily the Jewish Sabbath, or not necessarily the day that God rested, but just to observe a day. It's even so interesting that there's a call to do this to help to promote restoration of the earth. Right now, because of COVID-19, there's almost a rest that the earth is getting. What do I mean by that? Well, people aren't going out as much. They're more in the house. They're not driving. The fumes and the toxins that we create, there's not as much. So you find that you're seeing animals that you don't normally see. They're coming out to enjoy the fresh air. You're finding that you're seeing different things that under normal circumstances you wouldn't see. You see the stars, and you can see some of the fog being lifted. So the earth is getting a rest. There's not this going out hunting and killing and all this sort of stuff. You find in the Bible, it also tells you of different types of rest. First, you had the weekly rest, but then as you continue through the Bible, it talks about rest where the earth, if you think about the time of farming when people would do slash and burn, and they would actually at times actually not do any farming in a certain area to rest the land, to cause it to almost like repopulate and reproduce and to rejuvenate. So you find now that because of the global warming and the fact that everybody understands that the earth is in a mode of self-destruction, there's a need to go back to rest. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that technology, while technology may be good on one hand, it comes at a cost. Technology actually kills us. We have to destroy the earth in many respects for technology to proceed. When I look at a pen and think about all the natural resources that go into making a pen, and the length of time it took for those resources to come into existence. You look at a paper, the killing of a tree, and how long a tree takes to grow. You look at the houses and all the materials that we use into making a house. You realize that for that progression, we take substance and life out of the earth. And so there's no wonder that there's a call to go back to this rest. As you consider what I've said, and the next lecture I'll actually go a little bit further into talking about the signature. Take a look at the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments. And as you look at it, see if you can find the command that tells you who the one who was given it is. What is his territory? What is his dominion? What is his domain? And what makes him able to give you that command? And you'd find that every other command has to do with someone, whether it be to God himself or to your fellow men. But one of the command, which is the one that has a signature, it says remember. And that command has to do with the thing that we all have in common as long as we're alive. And as long as you would observe that command, you will never question where you came from, how you came, and who it is that put you here. That's the signature. See if you can find it. I look forward to continuing this discussion on the next lecture. Thank you.